All right, so you watched the last video on 5 things I hate about cycling, and it did pretty well. So it warranted a follow-up, and the follow-up I wanted to be positive. So we're sitting down and we're doing another degustation of 5 rounds as I go through 5 things that I love about cycling. However, there's a bonus at the end because you can't keep dropping off about halfway through the videos. So I'm offering you a little treat, a little bit of cherry pie, if you will, at the end of this video, with one thing that I wanted to put in last week. So there's one more negative in this video, but one thing that I hate just as, what's the opposite of a curtain raiser? I don't know. Anyway, that. Also, subscribe because 280 people watched the last video and I've only got 132 subscribers. So there is fuckery afoot. Yeah, this shirt. Anyway, let's get stuck in with 5 things that I love about cycling, one thing that I don't. Okay, so the camaraderie. Basically what this means is the idea that you can show up to a group ride and be accepted, or you can have a group of people on a group ride that you might have nothing in common with other than the fact that you cycle, but that's enough to create a group of people that are like-minded and enjoy each other's company. So this one kind of stems from a group ride that I went on a couple of months ago, and it was suggested to me through a WhatsApp chat that I've got, and I knew no one that was going on the ride. I was just looking for a Saturday morning bike ride because I was going to miss the Sunday one because of kids. So my usual Sunday one was out. Showed up to this Saturday one and had the best time with a bunch of random strangers who the only thing I have in common with, or as initially, was that we rode bikes. And I think that's super cool. I think it's amazing about the sport, and I've never really found that in other sports. You show up to soccer games to play and you just don't click. But I feel like you go to any cycling thing, you meet any cyclist and you just click and bond over this idea that you love cycling. And this also happened with the sushi train. So shout out to How's Your Weekend Will, suggested that I go and attend the sushi train. I've done a video on the sushi train. Should be right there for you. But going to this, I just found a group of people that were super welcoming in the Casual Cycling Group Sydney, and they were just really eager to have more people coming along. And it was such a good experience for me that I invited 2 other people to come along who also enjoyed it, and Alex is coming as a regular rotation. So I think it's something unique and special to our sport, but it's definitely the camaraderie and the ability to just show up anywhere. And one of my goals is really to travel the world, just showing up to random group rides and meeting new people and discovering new places. I think that's something that's really special about our sport. So yeah, number 1, the camaraderie. Okay, so number 2 is the tech. And I know that last week I sort of rambled on in the video, again, I'll pop it up there, about how I hated how cycling was overmarketed and overexpensive, essentially inaccessible, or seemingly inaccessible to people that don't have the budget to fork out and buy a high-end road bike. But if you do have the money, one of my favorite things is the tech around it. It feels like you're working with a high-end machine. The ability to, pop in a little bit of carbon fiber, the way that bikes are being designed at the moment. One of my favorite bikes that's going around at the moment is the current Trek Madone with the cutout in the seat post. I think that just looks so high-tech and so futuristic. Similar with the Bianchi Ultra when it had those fins on the front, and the UCI banned those, and I found that pretty deflating. And one thing that I'd really love to see in cycling, something that I think would get a whole bunch of new people on, these people that are obsessed with the tech end, would be an opening of the rules, not for Tour de France style races, but a different sort of like a Formula E, where you create a racing series where the bike brands have essentially carte blanche to design the bikes how they want in order to be able to extract the greatest advantage. And you might see some bike manufacturers going ultra light, 4 kilogram bicycles. You might see other ones going super aero and seeing, differences, a flat stage, the super aero ones take away and then the climbs. I just love that to be opened up a little bit so there could be some innovation. I think that would be a super exciting place to see cycling going in the future. Okay, so number 3, fucking subscribe. Have you done it yet? Okay, now let's move on to actually the real number 3, which is racing. Not everyone races. I 100% get that. And I 100% understand why not everyone races. It is a little bit sketchy at times, and it is super scary. But you know what else is? Riding in a bunch. And when you're racing, you at least know that the people that you're racing with are confident in their ability, or they're at a certain level where they believe that they can race. So you do tend to have a higher level of bicycle handling and a higher level of skill at races than you do in your random Sunday group ride, where any random stranger can show up and come along. You need to have a UCI license. You need to be registered. You need to show a level of commitment that suggests that you've put in that effort. And it is the ultimate test of your fitness and also your skill. One thing that I just gained so much more appreciation for after I did my first races was the level of skill in the pro peloton, not in the fitness and the strength, but in the racecraft. And watching YouTube channels like Latin Rouge, you get a bit of a feel for this. You don't really understand it until you've been in a race and you understand how you don't necessarily need to be the strongest person to be the best person. And the technique and the skills that come from racing is something that you can refine over and over. And it is just a great feeling. Going around in a race, the ebbs and flows of crit races, where at the start it flogs and then it slows down in the middle and then at the end it picks up tempo again, the working together with people, the tactics, some of the little arguments about, no, I'm not going to work with you. Those things are just so much fun and something that you can only experience in a race. So if you are thinking about doing it and you're a little bit nervous, go. There's always a grade. Start in the low ones and then work your way up and see what you get out of it. And if you're in the Sydney area and you would like to test out bike racing, comment down below. Let me know where you're located and I will come to your next bike race with you. I'd love to go. Give me an excuse to go and flog myself around a track and you might beat me. So put it in the comments if you'd like to hook up a race in Sydney and I'll come. Otherwise, I'm going to be at Eastern Creek, I think on the 2nd of November, pending permission from the wife. Okay, so I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I absolutely love climbing. I'm a little bit sketchy on descending. I had an accident last year now, and I essentially developed a hematoma in my leg, had to go in for surgery due to an infection. It was a whole thing, and I've kind of lost the edge on my descending. I used to pride myself on it, but now I just don't. I'm 34 and I've got kids. I'm not going to die on the descent of a hill. However, climbing is a different beast because you are putting yourself against a hill. You do all this training at home on the turbo trainer. I know how much I can put out, and every time I hit a hill, I say, okay, this is a 10, 11, 15-minute hill, excuse me. And I know how many watts I can put out for that period of time on the trainer. And so I say to myself, okay, you've got this much time, let's put out this many watts, let's hold that steady and let's try and set the best time that we possibly can. Every single hill like that, your long hills, not your pimples, but your long hills, every single one is like an individual time trial between you and your power. It is an ultimate test of the people that you ride with as well, and allows you to place yourself between the group that you're in. It's one thing going flat out on a flat, it's another thing going up hills, and it allows you to see sort of where do you actually stand as a cyclist. Because to be honest, I think there are two things that really measure a cyclist's ability. Now, this is not two things that measure a real cyclist. You're all real cyclists, but a cyclist's ability is in the sprint and in the climbs. You're either one or the other. And climbing is a really good opportunity to see where you sit in your bunch in regards to climbing, and it allows you to ego a little bit. But aside from that, climbing brings the best views. Nothing better than going up a beautiful hill. You know, you're not often going 15 kilometers on a bike, whereas when you're climbing, you're going up a hill, you've got a chance to take it in, you've got a chance to see everything around you, you've got a chance to appreciate how beautiful this sport is, because we don't often do that when we're flogging ourselves at 40 kilometers on a straight. So I think it's the greatest challenge, and I absolutely love climbing. Okay, so the last one is the simplicity. Now, you may see in the background here, I've got my own workbench, I've got my own bike stand drilled into the wall. I do all my own servicing. Now, this is because, with a caveat, I've been doing my own servicing for something like 15 years, close. And so I've developed an understanding of how a bicycle works, and before we go into this, I would recommend that if you have a high-end bicycle, don't start on that. Get a cheaper one and do some playing around with that. Get a cheaper one with rim brakes, because nothing is more fun than tuning up rim brakes and getting them to work perfectly. And also, they're significantly simpler than hydraulic disc brakes. But with all of that out of the way, and the fact that electronic gearing is slowly eroding at this, there is nothing more satisfying than working on your own bike and understanding the simplicity of a bicycle. At the end of the day, the bicycle is the machine that brought transportation to the working man. When the bicycle was invented, it created a revolution in that people that couldn't afford horses were now able to jump on a machine that was simple to use and simple to maintain. And I think for the most part, cycling has kept that at its core. And if you can learn how to tune your own gears, there is nothing better than being out on a ride and having each gear drop into place, bang, 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 and knowing that's all on you. That's you. Getting the best out of your bike when you've done it yourself is such a satisfying feeling, and I really recommend developing the understanding. Now, I've got a couple of books. Which it seems my wife has put in storage. But one of them is called The Anatomy of a Bicycle. You can get them at your local bookstores. Basically, you know, the entry-level mechanic stuff. Start learning what the different components of your bicycle are called and start working on this, because it is such a skill. Not only does it save you money, and, you know, go to the local bike shop if you need to do something more serious, because let's be honest, they need the work, and also they're the best people to service your bike. But small things like changing your chain, tuning your gearing, they're things that you can do by yourself. And once you learn how to do them, save yourself a lot of cash, get yourself a lot of satisfaction, and they're skills that are transferable onto your kids or to your friends. I've taught friends how to tune their bikes so that they can do it at home. I've got a mate that used to bring his bike into work, and we'd sit down and go through the problems that he was experiencing, and it was super fun to teach a friend those skills. But also on top of that, I'm really excited about being able to teach my knowledge of how to service a bicycle to my daughters when they start riding bikes. So these things are transferable, and I think that's really, really exciting. So learn how your bike works and appreciate the simplicity and the beauty of the machines that we ride. Okay, and this is a bonus round. I was going to have like boom, boom, fireworks and stuff because it's a bonus, but it's a little bit somber. So something that I wish I'd included last week, but it didn't pop up at the time, is weight. Weight in cycling, and specifically the pressure to lose weight. So I did some maths, and we're going to go through a few terms here. If you're not familiar with them, FTP is your functional threshold power. Put simply, this is the average power that you're able to maintain at peak for an hour. Now, it's really just a metric that you get, and it serves the basis for your training. So it's a arbitrary number, but it helps you set a benchmark for your training. So that's your FTP. My current FTP is 288, and my best FTP when I was cycling at my peak was 325. So that's FTP. Now, the other thing that we're going to talk about is watts per kilo. Now, that is how many watts can you put out at FTP based on how much you weigh. So the algorithm for this is simply to divide your FTP by how much you weigh. So for at the moment, for example, I'm 288 and I weigh 89 kilos. So 288 divided by 89, and that comes to 3.2 watts a kilo. So for every kilogram in my body, I'm putting out 3.2 watts at FTP. At my peak, at 325, when I was weighing 84 kilos, my watts per kilo were 3.8. Now, to get my current watts per kilo back to 3.8, I could either train to get my FTP back up to 325, or alternatively, I could lose weight and drop down to 75 kilos. Ghost. If I drop down to 75 kilos, I would actually have a better watts per kilo than I did when I was at 325 and flogging myself on the bike. And so there is a benefit to losing weight that is greater sometimes than the benefit in training, and significantly better than the benefit in dropping a couple of grams on your bicycle. And so there is this pressure in cycling to constantly be lighter. You see this, if you want the best exemplar of this, go and watch the Mark Cavendish documentary and have a look at when he's trying to get back to his peak and the obsession with losing weight. He essentially admits to having bulimia. He doesn't quite go that far, but he does state that he essentially had an eating disorder at the time. And it's something that I've dealt with eating disorders since I was 14. I was avoiding bringing lunch to school because I was embarrassed about my weight. Coming into cycling, it is such an accepting and positive community, but for someone with those sort of demons, cycling does sometimes exacerbate that. And I do find myself experiencing constant anxiety over the type of body that I have for the sport that I've chosen. I'm constantly talking about how I want to lose weight. My wife's constantly telling me that cyclist bodies are not attractive at all. But it's something that I constantly grapple with, and I wish that this was addressed in some way. And I don't know how that is done, because at the pro level, once you hit a plateau, losing weight is the best way to go faster. And you do not win these pro races unless you are at the lightest that you possibly can be before your body starts eating its muscle mass. And how do you balance that? That's what it means to be a peak cyclist. But surely, there's got to be a line drawn here where it says, okay, this is the amount of body fat, for example, that a cyclist must have at the start of a Grand Tour. You must be 8% body fat, 16%. I don't know. I'm not a dietitian. But essentially, I think this is sort of when doping was removed. You have a look at the cyclist before doping, and you have a look at the cyclist after doping. And I'm not saying that doping is good, but I think this has become the new doping. Lose weight, lose as much weight as you can. And I think someone will die from this. I think this is an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. And I genuinely worry about this in cycling. So anyway, that's a Debbie Downer to end it on. But that is my 5 things that I love 5 things I love about cycling, and 1 thing that I hate. If you have any thoughts or opinions on this, comments. And again, if you did want to tee up one of those races, in the comments. Also, if you're in Sydney in group rides, in the comments. If you're a new cyclist and you're looking at coming on a group ride, in the comment, I'll hook you up with someone in Sydney that is in your area, or I might even make a cameo myself because I love getting out on group rides. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, and we'll see you next week for a special episode featuring a special person.